People that quit fighting games are lazy. People that quit fighting games just care about winning. People that quit fighting games have weak egos. These are statements I've heard many times over the last few years of the hashtag discourse, particularly on fighting game Twitter and in Discord chats. And I'm here to say, no, stop that right now. Not because it's helping to foster a communal mindset that extols the virtues of gatekeeping, although it definitely does, but because it's factually inaccurate, as indicated by a metric ton of research into human behavior. Hi, I'm Everyday Legend. I take an inordinate amount of time to make what I hope are high-quality videos on topics I like and care deeply about. And this current video has been made possible due to my wonderful patrons. Thank you for your support, because it's being used to raise quite a few serious questions, and maybe even offer an answer or two with the power of research. The links to which will be in the description as to keep this video as succinct as possible. So please, do me a solid, watch this whole thing. I hope that this will be a guidepost to a much larger and hopefully rational discussion. So, getting back to people quitting fighting games. If you want to understand why people quit things, you need to understand driving factors for decision making. And the decision to leave something where it lies and move on is usually driven by a single factor: frustration. When a child is frustrated with a sport, they quit playing it. When an employee is frustrated with their working environment,
Guys, what is this? Guys, all of you out right now.
Jared, I'm here to tell you that I'm quitting.
they leave that environment. When lovers become frustrated with their relationship, that relationship deteriorates. And when someone quits the relationship, that relationship, or at the very least, the nature of that relationship, is over. So, zooming back in on the topic at hand.
Oh! Mike threw all his money?
Why do people, particularly new players, quit fighting games? There's a number of reasons for this, and I think that the often stated assumptions do hold a limited degree of truth in them, but not enough to definitively say that these statements are in fact true. Let me explain. For the lazy argument, I believe that the expectation to study up and practice is absolutely key to success within the genre, and this can certainly turn some people off of it, but I wouldn't chalk this up to laziness. I'd chalk it up to not knowing how to best spend your time within that game. For the just care about winning argument, I believe that winning feels good and losing feels bad. You don't need behavioral science to prove that this exists, although it certainly illuminates how and why it does. But I don't think that this good/bad feeling is the driver of quitting, merely the visible symptom of a more serious underlying condition. That condition being a lack of understanding. And for the weak egos argument, I believe that this is just flat out false. And the behavioral research tends to indicate that while ego is a factor, it's not necessarily the ultimate decider. Because when you reframe this point of view to consider that these people are experiencing force-multiplied frustration from not knowing how to spend their time with purpose, and not understanding how or why that a more focused and purpose-driven investment of time in the pursuit of skill and... Oh my God. Oh, this sentence. Okay. Okay, let's try this again. Because when you reframe this point of view to consider that these people are experiencing force-multiplied frustration from not knowing how to spend their time with purpose, and they aren't aware of how or why the need for a more focused and purpose-driven investment of time in the pursuit of skill acquisition or refinement of that skill set is the direct precipitant of a higher success ratio in the execution of said skill set, then they're not a victim of a weak ego, they're just a victim of an inaccurate mindset. So, combine an inaccurate mindset and being unable to understand why they're losing, and not knowing how to best spend their time and energy in order to improve, and bam, you get frustration with no real outlet to resolve it. So, what do they do from there? Well, they could just quit, right? But that would mean giving up on the investment they've made trying to get in, and this means they're likely going to test the limits of sunk cost fallacy by trying to justify reinvested their limited time and energy back into it. The first thing they're going to do is talk about it online. However, they're not going to ask the right questions, because as new players, they won't have the benefit of legacy skill or experience or proper vernacular. So they're going to come off as people that don't understand the root of their problem or what they could do to even remedy it. So when they do this, what do they get for their troubles? Well, it tends to go one of two ways. One, they ask for something and get silence in response. Or worse, they just get told something non-helpful like, just play the game more. Or two, they risk being made into a very publicly visible pariah by the same community they're seeking help from, which means their initial experience in trying to gain understanding is being punched down upon by the people they're trying to communicate the nature of their problems to without knowing the language being spoken or having the correct mindset to frame their problem solving around, or without having the understanding required to both present their true problems or begin working on solutions to them. So, in the face of either being soft abandoned or publicly executed for heresy,
Wow, it's amazing what they can do now.
It is.
quitting seems like a rational option, because both of these likely outcomes are just going to add more frustration on top of the pre-existing frustration. And when you frame it in that sense, I don't think anyone can really blame them for walking away. I mean, let's be serious here. We don't have a Twitter account called Help Quotes X. That kinda says it all. I feel that jumping to these sort of they're lazy conclusions only serves to validate and reinforce the superiority complex that accompanies most competitive activities. And I feel that we routinely seem to ignore the fact, not the idea, the fact, that no champion-level competitor in anything has ever risen from a vacuum. A champion usually comes from a very supportive and nurturing scene that has fostered their growth and allowed their natural talent to be utilized to its maximum effectiveness.
Jerem, you died!
It could be an older brother,
What?
a group of tight-knit cousins or friends, your local scene, an online gathering place, or, if you're an old man like me, an arcade. True paragons of the skill and dedication this scene holds on its rightly deserved pedestal came from a collective, from their training partners, their rivals, and all the players just like them that had to lose so that they could win. They are all a part of the same whole.
What do you think? That could be it.
We are all a part of the same whole. So knowing that, I find it disconcerting when we use collectivism against new players, no matter how distasteful we find their sometimes uneducated and ignorant flailing to be, especially while we expect them to seek out and find external means of improvement by stepping outside of the game and into the community as their chief method of gaining accelerated understanding about the game and the genre. And we certainly can't bemoan the stunted growth of the genre or why it is that fighting games make the least amount of money out of major esports, or tout our supposed level of diversity and inclination towards inclusion when we treat the new sources of potential lifeblood as expendable, or worse, a foreign element that must either conform or be rejected. Side note, This does not shield people that leverage racism, sexism, homophobia, or anything of the sort. If you weaponize those things either in-game, via messaging, in discussions, on stream chat, etc., guess what, bud? You deserve to get dragged. And I'll personally be clapping for the dragger when they do it to you, because you earned every single bit of what you got. Moving on. When it comes to this communal mindset, I think we can combat this by doing what we tell new players to do. Adapt.
All right, yeah. Cue the torches and pitchforks in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.